Loving kindness meditation, when is a good time to practice, how to practice? It can be very difficult. I avoid it because it stirs up a lot of emotions in me. How can I accept that, to sit with the emotions while practicing loving kindness meditation? Well, I mean, to be quite honest, you don't really need to practice loving kindness at all, because as you develop, say, anapanasati, walking, the Buddha mantra, anicca, the perception of anicca, that loving kindness will the loving kindness will automatically be generated from the other practices without you intentionally doing so. But if you're really into loving kindness, you really like it. I mean, I wouldn't in general society, because people are so, how can I explain it? Even in community, many of the monks don't do it at all. You really don't need to. If you're a good person, you don't have to be a saint. But if you keep the 5 precepts, your loving kindness is actually there in your actions, your behaviour. If you don't harm anyone at all, it's good enough. But there are, with loving kindness, when is a good time to practice? So. Maybe when things are quiet, there's not much happening. There are disadvantages with metta. It can make you like really soft, really sensitive, and you might find that some people, they'll just walk all over you. They don't understand that energy. I can usually spot people like that very, very quickly. I mean, as soon as they walk in the door, if you just spend 1 or 2 minutes, it's something you can feel. Good time to practice, yeah. Just like when you come, when a comfortable time and location. This kind of meditation, you don't do this kind of meditation when you're a police officer, a prison officer, maybe emergency services, an ambulanceman. If you're really soft and fluffy like a cotton ball, it can actually be a disadvantage. If you're a youth worker, you wouldn't do this. You're in a situation where you're in contact with difficult people, rough people. I definitely wouldn't do it. It's some people can be quite idealistic. They think, it's so nice to love and care for other people. But I don't do this practice whatsoever on any level, and I don't have any trouble relating to other people and helping them with their stuff. It's not a matter of being a tough guy or anything like that. You'll develop it naturally with the other practices, even with the body contemplation, which is a very coarse practice that you need to be careful with, even with the forest monks, and you still develop it like loving kindness, even with the most coarse meditation practices you can do. But the bottom line, I'm not going to dispute. If some people they just love this practice, they love the way it feels. And for some people, they really get off on it. They really enjoy it. But but the bottom line is, it's not for me to judge. If you really, really like it, you feel comfortable with it, you find it useful. Well, essentially, that's the way for you to go, because all of us have different. We have different karma, different personalities. So how to practice? So for example, you've got the stock formula. You don't need to practice. You only need to practice for yourself. You don't need to practice loving kindness for other people within days, because you are the key people. You are the key person in. So you're like your universal experience. Everything comes from you. From your mind as a basis. Your life comes from is generated and projected out from your mind. You can just use the stock formula like may I be happy and well. Any kind of positive emotional sentiment that you can think of. May I be such and such. You can choose 101 words. You can even research the dictionary to find very, very what's the word? Like highfalutin, meaningful. I'm not like just say like teasing people for being airy fairy, but you may find very, very very altruistic, very what's the right words? really like meaningful, deep, profound sort of utterances within the English language, which may be, very, very important to you. So you choose the word formula which is important, with the loving kindness to give it strength, because the loving kindness, compassion will make you very soft. And you know what people are like in general society. They may not necessarily be soft, kind, patient people. And because of the level of pressure on people, financially, family life, all the rest of it. But the bottom line is, it's not for me to tut-tut. As long as you feel comfortable with it, it's all well and good. So you choose your formulation. You can do things like, you can, let's see, like loving kindness on the breath. You can love the breath. You can look at the breath. To develop the beautiful breath, because you're developing the perception of the beautiful. Loving kindness does exactly that. Anyone who does loving kindness every single day, even for 60 seconds, I mean, if you want to make friends, this is how you fast track. If you want to make friends and you want to attract people, loving kindness is something which works very, very quickly. And Ajahn Brahm mentioned this story. There was a young guy, probably about 17, on one of his retreats in Malaysia, was very interested in a young lady, and he said to Ajahn Brahm, he said, "I'm very interested in this young woman." He said, "How can I possibly connect with her?" So, Ajahn Brahm's quite, what's the word? Quite, I wouldn't say, let's say like jovial. He's quite, he understands the way the mind works. He said, why don't you practice metta for that young lady? And amazingly, they ended up getting together after the retreat, and they get along really well, the last I heard. It can be very difficult. I avoid it because it stirs up a lot of emotions in me. But that's not, if it's counteractive, I wouldn't do it. If it makes life difficult for you on any level, I wouldn't do it. You don't want to be too soft. If you practice loving kindness, with the mantra formulation, you do it continuously. You don't have big spaces between the words, because you get overly. I don't want to repeat myself, but you get overly soft, overly sensitive. You want to develop loving kindness, compassion, but you make it really firm, very psychologically strong. You do the recitation like continually, slowly, continually, with no spaces between the words, and you get a sense of firmness to it. How can I accept that if I sit with the emotions while practicing loving kindness meditation? So, I just let it go. I wouldn't. You can do things like just do it. If you're going to do it in a firm manner. Maybe something like loving kindness for kittens. Ajahn Brahm he's got like a kitten meditation. He radiates loving kindness to like a little abandoned kitten with who's just come in from a rainstorm and it's all cold. It's all cold and hungry. And it works really well. So and especially the lay teachers, the monastics have a reasonable take on this one. There's all sorts of things you can do, but some of the lay teachers are very, very good with this kind of practice, because they're mixing in the general community, and they tend to practice it themselves, especially when they're on retreat. So there may be some say books by lay teachers which may have some very, very versatile techniques. Loving kindness on the breath, is definitely. You can look at the breath as your friend. So as you're breathing in and out, you develop this attitude that the breath is my friend, the breath sustains my physical body, it sustains my life. And you just feel it, you just feel it out. You can, for example, have the intention of say, friendliness, of loving kindness with people around you. So, one of our monks, he doesn't practice formally, but what he does, if he sees an opportunity to help someone, he always goes out of his way. If he has, because he's got significant, like herbalist experience, he's got little pots of potions and ointments and creams, and whenever people are sick or in trouble, if they have skin conditions or this or that, he's always quite generous with his, so like his herbal supply, his herbal treatments, and supporting, encouraging the lay community when they come to stay. So he actually, it's like, what's the right word? It's say practice like in motion. He sees an opportunity to help someone, and he always makes an effort on a regular basis, on a daily basis. Understanding emptiness. So as you're aware, the emptiness principle is something that people who have, say, like full samadhi meditation, who have the jhana meditation, have a very good, have a firm understanding of what emptiness is, because the jhana meditations, they're based on that empty, blissful mind. And so anyone who's got, say, firm upachara samadhi, suppression of the 5 hindrances, first jhana right through to 8 jhanas, Nirodha Samapatti being the nibbana element, all those people have an intuitive understanding of emptiness. So the jhanas are like small stages of emptiness. Nibbana is the ultimate stage. It's like big mind, the void mind, completely empty of absolutely everything. But that's the reason why it's so incredibly blissful and happy, because all disturbances, all emotional, any kind of emotional effect, any kind of effects of say perception. So all bliss is abandoned, all equanimity is abandoned, all perceptions of diversity are abandoned. So you have the alternate state of stillness. You can't go any further you can't go any deeper than the nibbana element. It's the ultimate. It's as deep as you can possibly go in the mind. You can develop that meditation. Things. Certain aspects are empty in nature. Could be certain feelings. It's good to work with difficult things. It works quite well. But you've got to make sure you stay grounded with this, because you can start to float around and you can lose you can lose touch with things. You can do things like, so a person could be having an epileptic seizure, or they could faint in front of you, and you'll let them drop, because you're so detached. So you've got to be a bit careful with this kind of thing. You can develop it, like what you can do things like, you can develop it for, say, 60 seconds and then just feel it out. Do it like every day, 60 seconds, give it a couple of days, 3 days, 4 days, and it'll definitely kick in. It's not a light practice. It really has, once you get it rolling, it definitely works, but you don't want to, you've got to stay in touch with the people around you and circumstances. When things get, like you're crossing a road, like you think, you got this perception of emptiness, but you need to be sensible when you're crossing a road, or you've got a truck coming towards you. Is there a technique for investigating difficult emotions that one finds overwhelming whenever they try to investigate them? All right, so if I put myself in your shoes, I've got very heavy emotions to deal with, and when I start investigating, it's very, very, say, overwhelming, as they say. So how would I deal with that? What I would tend to do. this is what I would do. That emptiness principle will come up. So when you've got very, very strong emotions, you can undercut, undermine, and disempower those very, very strong, uncomfortable emotions with the emptiness principle. So say, for example, something like, say, for example, if I'm constantly afraid, I might be someone who is very insecure, afraid. I could basically have borderline paranoia, like right on the borderline. The average person think, oh, this guy is very, very fearful and insecure. He worries. He's always worrying. But I could be right on the edge with this kind of mental health experience, and you can disempower that kind of feeling with that emptiness principle. That particular emotion is empty, and it's that same thing again. You feel it out. All these meditations, you need to feel your way to see what works, what doesn't, what's good for you, and what's not so effective. So this business with investigating, how would I approach it? You could do things like, say for example, I have major trouble with my brother. As we were growing up, there was also, there could be maybe trauma in the family, this and that. Sometimes siblings get, not in my case, but siblings get favored and whatnot. We had a young lady, there's a lady I know, a young woman I know, whose father, God knows why, her father, because she's a very, very good person, quite genuine, been a practitioner for many years, and her father favors her younger sister over her, even though the older daughter and father have really enjoyed bushwalking. They like to walk, they like to backpack, and on a regular basis. And the younger sister's very, very worldly, materialistic, but for some reason the father, things like it's not a very nice thing to do. The father invited the younger sister to go walking with him in New Zealand, just the two of them, and he didn't even invite his oldest daughter, who's a professional walker, professional backpacker. And she was crying her eyes out, and she drove 2.5 hours to the location where we were, so she could talk the situation over with my friend who was, we were down south at the time, looking at, trying to work out some stuff on a community setting. So, what would you do with something like that? Say, for example, like if my emotional, say with her situation, the emotional pain is essentially generated and brought on by the father's behavior. So you can do things like, you can use the death contemplation. This works really well for difficult circumstances and keeps you grounded. Say like, my father will die. Say my father's name is Eric. Eric will die, or Eric is going to die. It's not that I want that person to die. It's that this is very, very effective in undermining the importance and the power of this person on your life. And if you have someone who's really, really difficult, it's a very good practice to do, and it works very, very well. Because no matter what they do, no matter what they say, no matter how crazy they are, or how disturbed they are, or this or that, if you contemplate the death of this person, you do that mantra formulation, this person will die, using their name. You can do it any fashion which that you like, and it just undermines the whole personality complex of that individual. It undermines the whole existence of that person. What else can you do? And think to yourself, go to the Buddha's teaching. Like, say for example, we're suffering. We have really very, very difficult emotions. Just ask yourself that question. That the Four Noble Truths are the what would you call it? The pivot point, the center point of the Buddha's teaching. Why am I suffering? You've got to ask yourself. It might be completely obvious to you, but you still haven't understood the experience because you still can't let it go. If you understand something thoroughly, you can just, as I mentioned, you can just drop it instantly, within seconds. If you're still suffering, it means that it's not comprehended at all to any great degree. So, you can trust the Buddha on this one. Why am I suffering? And so just go into it gently, just in a way that you can handle. Don't try to take on too much. Just a little bit of investigation, maybe here and there, as long as you feel comfortable with it. But that's the bottom line. Why am I suffering? And then explore it, because it's not like this is not like baby teaching. All the Buddha's teaching essentially revolves around the Four Noble Truths. They are the center point of Buddhism, and so you should be able to get some significant insight with that approach. What is the difference between samadhi and samatha? So it's just a difference in the wording, the terminology. They're exactly the same. Samatha, like true samadhi, true samatha is one-pointedness of mind. People say, well, what's the difference between mindfulness and samadhi? Mindfulness has the ability to, for example, you can be mindful in the present moment, but you could be doing 2 or 3 things in the course of a minute, but you're mindful moment to moment of those 2 or 3 things that you're doing. So you can have a series of events, a series of things that you're doing in the course of a day. You could be multitasking, but you can still be very, very sharp. If you've been a meditator for many, many years, I wouldn't, you can't really call it one-pointed, because one-pointed, that's what it means, one point inside the mind in deep, deep samadhi. That's true one-pointedness. But people can still be very, very sharp and very fast. My father's is engineering foreman, very smart cookie with multiple degrees, engineering foreman, said something like, he said his mind was so fast that he could think of 2 or 3 things at once, which is an absolute nonsense. No one can do that. You can only think of one thing at one time, but your mind can be incredibly moved. It's so fast, you can move from one thing to another. But the average person might give the impression that you can think of 2 things in a second, but your mind is so fast that, you could maybe move, some people can move in even a third a second, a third, a half of 1 second. The mind is able to shift and move that quickly. But that kind of thing, you're looking at parami there. The average person doesn't necessarily have that kind of capability. But you can actually, meditation, definitely sharpens people. Ajahn, how to differentiate? Is it nimitta? Is it just light from outside? So, if you have a genuine samadhi nimitta, the way the forest masters teach, the experience of a genuine samadhi nimitta everybody, when you have a sustained samadhi nimitta, the nimitta is there all the time. Not everyone has the light, but every single person has the bliss. It's not just joy. You got 5 levels of joy from say like tickling sensations on the surface of the skin, to full flow, like a full flow chi state. So anyone who knows qigong, who's a practitioner of qigong, tai chi. I don't know about Reiki, but you're looking at energy transfer with Reiki. But I won't give an opinion on that because I know virtually nothing about Reiki. But yeah, definitely qigong, tai chi, full chi flow through the body, and that's what you call 5th level. That was what you would call 5th level rapture. But piti sukha is a different ball game. Full flow chi, or rapture will definitely impress you because you can sustain it. I don't know where it comes from exactly. Maybe it could be a universal thing because the energy is flowing through you. It's like chi. It's flowing through you, through your chi points, meridians. That can flow for easily 3, 4, 5 hours, and you think to yourself, where is the energy coming from? You can't always, unless you've mastered samadhi, you can't do this type of thing on a regular basis. You may only, you may only be able to do it if you can have good meditation. You may only be able to do it several times a year. But when you've got mastery of samadhi, then you can do it on a regular basis. You know, the joy that for people who have full samadhi on a daily basis, they have the piti sukha, which is the joy and bliss together, and you see true happiness. You see pure sukha, absolutely pure sukha. Piti's abandoned. You have pure sukha. The highest level of emotional happiness in the third jhana, and then when you move from the third to the fourth, it's so refined it becomes equanimity. You're looking at a refinement of the jhana factors from first, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then right through the refined, where all feelings abandoned, and then refined levels of perception. So the genuine nimitta, the light is inside the mind, not outside. You feel the sense of bliss. The mind is one-pointed, not two-pointed or three-pointed. It's one-pointed. The mind essentially shouldn't move at all. If you've got mastery of samadhi, you can still contemplate when that nimitta is right there. The light. It's like the way they explain it. The light coming from that nimitta is brighter and more pure than the radiance of the sun. Everyone knows how bright the sun is. That nimitta will easily be twice, easily two. I'm guessing 2.5 times as bright and luminous, as radiant as the sun in the sky. And seclusion, the mind. You've got a real sense of inner seclusion. So the experience, it's very, very internal. It's deep inside you. It's deep inside the mind. And if you have that experience, if you have firm upachara samadhi with a sustained samadhi nimitta, you will be able to remember that very clearly for 20 years. And there's no confusion. If you talk with someone about that experience, you will know exactly what you're talking about, and there's no misunderstanding. Dear Ajahn, with regard to insight meditation, does one reflect on their experience fully, or on something on should? Does somebody know the word on something? Be mindful watching. With regard to insight meditation, does one reflect on their experience fully, or on one's something? Be mindful watching. Is anyone able to clarify that one at all? That word? Okay, I'll do the first bit. With regard to insight meditation, does one reflect on their experience fully? Which is correct. You need to understand yourself on an emotional level, because your feelings is essentially what moves you. It moves the whole course of your life. But naturally, it's the current life plus past karma as well. So you've got the past life, many previous lives. So according to time and place, what karmas can actually reach you at any time. So mindful watching. So something mindful watching. You really have to go into the feelings and actually understand and comprehend the feelings as deep as you possibly can. Just to be mindful of this is just correct me later if I don't get this right. Just to be mindful and watchful of feelings it's not enough. It doesn't go deep enough. You can be mindful of hate, but it doesn't mean it's going to go away. But then again, it still gives you a degree of safety, because as a clairvoyant said to me many years ago, but it was a correlation in relation with the forest masters, that it's better to be, even if your insight is quite weak, you don't really understand what you're going through, even if you feel real strong anger and hate, if you're actually mindful of those emotions, you've got less potential of actually harming someone, because you can actually feel what's happening. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you've got, maybe, I better get this right. If you're mindful of some very harmful emotion you're going through, you've got less potential to harm yourself or harm others, but it's not foolproof, because the full insight into the process is not there, and that's really the only thing which is going to save you or keep you out of trouble in the long term. Because if anyone has real problems with anger, you get guys up at Carnet Prison who have to do anger. I mean, they make them do anger management courses as a prerequisite for their probation, and that business, that insight has to be watching over the process. Mindfulness is okay, but you can. I'm not being strange, but you can really harm someone with maybe some nasty implement, and you can do it mindfully. But seriously, I'm not being funny when I say this, but as you all understand that, insight is what understands and protects you, and protects other people as well. Practically, how do I set boundaries and still accept love and support people loved ones who struggle with their own lives and behave poorly towards me and or home rules? Specifically, my teenage son, who abuses drugs and gets abusive. I'll just give some examples. This is not my personal opinion. One of the mothers connected with the monastery, her husband was, so what I'm saying, her teenage son, like this young man, was just, many young guys and women use recreational drugs, but he was, maybe could have been using meth, or he could have been doing trips or this or that, and so this particular young man was, he was just creating problems at home. He wasn't listening to his mother. He wasn't looking after, just the cleanliness and tidiness, with the kitchen, with his room, this and that. Just doing what he likes when he liked. Be intoxicated, might, sort of call his mum bad names and this and that. And in the end, she warned him 3 times. She was a meditator. She's not silly. And her emotional intelligence is definitely more pronounced than the average person walking the streets. So she warned him 3 times. He wouldn't listen. So she basically kicked him out, and he had to sharpen up very quickly. So he wasn't silly enough to basically live on the street and hang out with other drug users. So he was a recreational user. But what he was doing was, he was living with mum. And he was sponging off mum's groceries, and sometimes borrowing her car, and this and that. So he was using his mother as a support. She got fed up, kicked him out, and then within I think probably about 5 weeks, 6 weeks, you know, he was just, I mean, financially, like really, really struggling, this and that. And then eventually he pulled his behavior back into line. But his mother made it very, very clear, you know, I will, you know, she said, I don't want you using drugs in my home, and, you know, these are my game rules, and, you know, if you're not prepared to follow my game rules, I do not want you back in this house whatsoever. So, you know, he got the message, and he towed the line. So, you know, he might go for a smoke or drop it, you know, maybe possibly drop a trip with his friends on weekends, but he wouldn't do it anywhere. He wouldn't do it at home, you know, and he wouldn't do it like with anyone who might sort of put him into let his mother know what he was doing. So, let me get this right. Specific Martino to drugs. Well, you know, all right. What I put myself in your shoes. What would I do? Right. So if my son was abusing, let's say, abusing drugs, creating problems at home. You know, I would sit down and talk with him. This is all fluffy stuff. So you sit down, you follow the Buddha's guidelines. You choose the right time and place. You wait till they're absolutely clear, not intoxicated. You choose the right time, place. You catch them when they're in a good mood, and you say, "Look, my darling son, I need to talk to you about your drug use and how it's affecting me and it's affecting the household, and this and that." And because mothers know their children very, very well, you just try to come across as best as you can, and you know, make it clear exactly what he's doing and how it affects you. And you know, if you have to tell him 3 times, that means he's basically gone. It's very easy for me to say these things because some mothers know that if they tell their son, if they kick their son out, put him out on the street, he may end up in more trouble on the street than he is at home. At home, at least she knows exactly what he's doing and who he's with and this and that. She can keep tabs on him. But if he's out on the street and he barely has money to live and he's got nowhere to stay and he's living as a homeless person, she can't guarantee what's going to happen. So it's better to have him at home where at least he's reasonably safe than out sort of like living homeless, you know, on the street with no cash and this and that. So, but you know, what maybe additionally what I would do if it was a tricky situation, I would consult. I mean, a very, very good, a long-term drug and alcohol counsellor who deals with these people on a regular basis, you know, absolute minimum 10, 20 years of, say, clinical practice, and if these, you know, these people understand these people very, very well. They've seen your situation, and they've seen every situation under the sun at least several hundred times. So you can take their advice to heart. You can take it very, very seriously because they've been through the mill so many times, and they know the mind state. They know the attitudes. They know how manipulative, how crafty, how sneaky, how the kind of attitudes that they have in the way they know the way it affects their body, the way it affects their brain, emotionally, and the way they play their parents, all this kind of stuff, all the little tricks and little games they get up to. You know, they know these people backwards. That's probably something I would do. I'm trying to think, is there anything else? You know, and you know, like, you know, make him pay his way. You know, if he's living under your roof, and he's eating your food, and he's using your internet and your television, and borrowing your car, and this and that, you know, make him pay his way. You know, he has to keep the house clean, or he has to do some work in the garden. You know, this is very, very easy for me to say these things. You know, but put the pressure on. Make him pay his way. You know, he's not a child. He's a young man, and you know, if he doesn't get out there and do the lawns and do this and do that, you know, you don't cook his meals, or you cut the internet off, or stuff like that. You know, I'm not trying to be trying to like the tough love thing, but these are options. If someone wants to play, if they won't play ball with you, if they make your life difficult, you're a good mother, you're doing your best, and if your teenage son won't play ball, well, you start to tighten the screws. I contemplate an area where my heart. I contemplate an area where my heart broke. I feel I've gone through it. I found some answers, and it goes for a while. Then it pops up again, and seems like every time something bigger comes out. From painful experiences from childhood and lately, I saw my own dishonesty in the motives I had to be in the relationship. It seems like I'd let go, but should I keep on digging in, maybe into this experience, or wait for it to arise when it does? Okay, so what I would do is, if this is a say, for example, something which is a big experience in your life, and it keeps coming up on a weekly basis, maybe even on a daily basis, and it gets triggered by different things, and certain feelings and come up in connection with this. What I would tend to do is just contemplate it in a very, very comfortable way, because if you really don't want this thing like hanging over you for like 5 or 10 years, and the only thing which is going to work is insight, is wisdom, because if I don't understand, like from myself, if I don't understand, if I don't work on my own stuff, if I don't understand my own problems, they're going to stay with you for like a long, long time. I've seen people, even at 60, 70 years of age, who still have their childhood stuff. These people, they do tend to do a lot of investigation and research and this and that, and they are genuinely happy people in a say like a worldly sense, but they're still affected. They're still affected by whatever 15 years of poor quality parenting. What else? Lack of attention, all sorts of things which kids go through. So my attitude is just to explore it very, very gently. Just do it in a way that you can handle. But you really don't have any choice, because this kind of stuff, it just will not go away. It can be very major stuff. It can be trifling stuff. But you really don't have any choice. You have to address these things, because they will just keep returning again and again and again. Living such a busy life, I find it hard to remember to meditate. How can I become more disciplined with more and say more regular practice? What I would do is I would do the one minute meditation. Just meditate for 60 seconds at any time. You can almost do it any time, anywhere. It's reasonably safe. You can do it several times a day, maybe a minute, several times a day, or maybe even 5 minutes, as long as you can function. You've got to make sure that you can work, you can remember, make decisions without a problem. Some people are, you may be on a committee, like in a team. You don't want to be compromised intellectually. You can do that 1 minute mantra, one mantra per 60 seconds. Just that little, those little anicca mantras, like conscious. It could be something like time is changeable, history, the future. It could be absolutely anything is changeable in nature. One mantra per every 60 seconds. That will make a difference. And just allocate time. All of you, if you wish, can find 5 minutes where you're free, when you're not actually doing something. Even the busiest people, even CEOs of multinational companies, can find 5 minutes within a 24-hour cycle to meditate. I've got no doubt about that. and remind yourself, the benefits. Like I don't underestimate or tut people who meditate 5 minutes a day, because people think, 5 minutes, that's nothing. But I know people who meditate for 5 minutes a day, and I can see them change, like from month to month to month. So it's not to be underestimated or considered to be a trivial thing, because it's not. And these people, their work performance increases, their students and their ability to study and sustain attention, and their performance, their exam performance increases, their patience, tolerance, resistance to stress. It all improves just for a little 5-minute meditation interval. You can remind yourself of all the benefits. Put it to the test. Do it for 5 minutes for a full 30 days, and put it and see and actually look at the benefits which arise within oneself. If you think to yourself, I'm interested in meditation, but I really can't be bothered. Well, we'll just do maybe just 1 minute per day. If you can handle that, then do 2 1-minute sessions per day, and you just please yourself. Maybe 1 minute a day for a couple of days, and then 2 1-minute sessions for a couple of days, and then 3 1-minute sessions for a couple of days, and just feel it out. Within the concept of reducing attachments, tell us about self-sufficiency. Self-sufficiency means that you have the resources and, say, like the emotional, say, material resources. You have an ability to be content within oneself, satisfied within oneself. You can be self-sufficient and independent, but it doesn't mean that you dismiss other people. You don't need other people. Or whatnot. When it comes to time and place, when people approach you or they need time and attention, you can respond accordingly. But once that person has left your presence, you're just super fine. You've got that sense of ease. I'm very happy with my own company. I feel comfortable with myself, and I'm not hungry for attention, relationships. To be told I'm such a great person, or got outstanding qualities and this and that. So, you don't need too much from other people, from the world, but you can respond accordingly when people and conditions come your way. So, having that degree of flexibility. So I keep putting emphasis. I've already mentioned this several times, but even for myself, I'm quite happy. So, for example, I like company. I wouldn't particularly want to be alone. Even if I was in an isolated location, I would want contact with other monks. I would never want to live alone completely, for weeks and months on end. But I'm quite sort of happy, within myself to a point. I have meditated and listened to and read the Dhamma for a number of years, but feel as though my meditation practice has not progressed. Is there anything you would recommend to assist with this? So I have meditated, listened to and read Dhamma a couple of years, feel my meditation has not progressed. All right, so, why is it the case? Naturally, as every single one of us know, the reason why the meditation doesn't develop is because we think too much, and our feelings, they drive our intellect. So it's guaranteed that the person, we have excessive thinking because we have emotional attachments. So the person needs to they need to understand themselves. Why do I think so much? Why am I so attached, and why I can't let go of certain experiences? So take one point at a time. Yeah, it might be quite complicated, the person's overall experience, but just take one aspect at a time. Maybe just one aspect per day, and examine it maybe 2 or 3 times. During the course of the day. But don't try. To reduce the complication, just one emotion, one mind state per day. Maybe reflect on it 2 or 3 times over quite thoroughly. And then move on. The next day, move on to maybe another feeling, another experience. And just that same thing again. That one mantra per minute, which is not to be underestimated. Just meditating for 60 seconds at a time. Develop a little bit of samadhi, and then contemplate, your experience. What else? And the thing is as well, it's not true that you don't. It's not true that you don't progress. Every single minute that you meditate, you're making your mind is busy, but the power of your mindfulness and attentiveness and focus is increasing. There's no thing, as Ajahn Brahms mentioned, there's no such thing as a bad meditation. Every time you put in a minimal amount of effort, you're always improving, but you need to sharpen your skill set. Anyone who can't get peaceful, essentially the vipassana, the insight, it's not strong enough, it's not firm enough. It's just the same stuff I've said like several times over, but that is the bottom line. All of you have the potential to get very, very deep samadhi in 30 seconds flat. You could potentially go to fourth jhana, which is incredible samadhi. You could do that easily, probably 2 minutes, 3 minutes. But just that same thing. It's the thinking process which obstructs you. So each individual has to find the best techniques, the best way to shut that down, like over time. It is very hard for me to do the loving kindness meditation. Can you please give us some methods to help? Thank you. So maybe just a very, 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 very mild meditation. Very mild. Now let me think. I mean, the stuff that's probably you mentioned quite a few things already. Yeah, just that similar thing. You've got the formal practice, but I would only do it for maybe 60 seconds at any time. It's that same. You really don't. Unless you've got incredible anger and hate, and you're a really kind of revengeful type of person. You don't just because you're a Buddhist doesn't mean that you have to do loving kindness, because if you're a good person, it's good enough. If you don't harm yourself or harm other people, it's perfect. Please tell us about your life and how you came to be a monk with metta. Okay, in a nutshell. So when I was young, long time ago, age 15, I started to get really interested in Dhamma at age 15, and this is a karmic thing. This is what, this kind of experience comes up, from the past. You're looking at conditions repeating themselves. So at that time, so in this life, age 15, I get very, very interested in, say, like the Zen master. No, I started off with Alan Watts, reading all of Alan Watts' books on Zen and the Zen masters, and then just experimenting a little with mantra meditation. So I was really fascinated by the sayings and the utterances of the Zen masters. And then this is all karmic. This is all karmically related. And then I did that for a couple of years, and then I went to D.T. Suzuki, the Chinese meditation. I wouldn't call him a meditation. Say, for choice of terms, meditation teacher and Dharma teacher. I don't know how amazing his meditation was, but he wrote, very, very good quality books on Dhamma, books on meditation, and he was world famous. So D.T. Suzuki from Japan, I believe, maybe Tokyo. And from there, then I went to from late 20s, I went to Theravadan Buddhism, and that was the point I started going to the Thai monastery at Bundanoon, just up the road from my parents' place, an hour and a quarter away. Did that for several years, and I was still working, doing contract. Doing contract engineering. Then I did nursing for a while. I was in the hospital system for 2 years, but I knew how to make a decision, how to stop work, go to the monastery, start practicing full time. And that's when I could have gone to the Thai monastery, but the weather's that place is like freezing, and many of the Thai monks, they could barely speak. There was only one monk who could really speak. There was two Thai monks who could speak English, and the rest of the monks, the grasp on English language was not so fantastic. So I would have had to learn Thai. If I wanted to communicate with these guys, I would have had to learn Thai as well. So I thought I was better off with, say, Western-based teachers, senior teachers, lots of experience in a Western community. So I came to Perth and, so 7.5 years in Perth as a young monk. Then I went overseas for 7.5, came back, and I've been back for at least, how long has it been? At least eight or 9 years. Myself and Ajahn Brahmali are coming up to, I think, 23 reigns now. So yeah, that's most of it in a nutshell. But you find, the guys who ordain, the monks and nuns who ordain, virtually all of them, you can almost guarantee that they've all got monastic karma. Like karma repeats itself. So if you come into this life and you ordain as a monk and nun, you can almost guarantee you were living in community life previously. Maybe not as a full monastic. You may have been a lay person, lay disciple, but you were a monastic. You were a celibate person, or you were. I'd say more. Yeah, I'd say celibate, because if you're going to take full ordination as a monk or nun, the underlying disposition is there, not to have, what's the right word? Like one relationship after another. Actually, I shouldn't say this, because one of our monks did exactly that. He went through. He must have. I mean, he's a nice guy, but he must have gone through maybe. I wouldn't be surprised. Maybe at least maybe close to 30. Say, be generous, maybe 28, 29 girlfriends, one after another. But he's a very gregarious, he's very friendly, very, very sociable, a very genuine person, and several wives. So by age 60, this is people's karma, this relationship karma. By age 60, that was the age that he came into the monastery. But he's full on. He'll never leave. He'll die as a monk, and he thinks being a monk is the greatest thing in the world. And he talks to other people. You should ordain, and even with the women practitioners, young women and this and that. Not just the monks, but the young women, encouraging them to ordain or live community life. But it took that long. I mean, it's just different karma. I was in the monastery at age 30, but for him it was age 60. With some other guys. We had a young monk in Chithurst. He was going to Chithurst at age 15. He became a novice at 17 and a half, I think. He became a full monastic 21. But the thing was, later, he went over to the Tibetan fraternity. So he was with us for a number of years within Theravada, and then he went over to the Tibetan fraternity. I think he's still with them. Things like, we had another monk who was with us in Perth in the early days, and he was a monk for at least 3 or 4 years, And then one day he woke up and he felt that Jesus was calling him. And he had to go over to the Christian fraternity at New Norcia. But the abbot, he could understand what he was going through. So he had, with the time experience, his Buddhist karma was coming up, was moving through him, and then the Buddhist karma came to an end, and then the Christian karma arose, and he felt this compulsion to become, like a Christian practitioner and to actually live in their community. So he left. The abbot understood this, completely, and some of the other monks grumbled, but it's not that difficult to understand. What the kind of in the different experiences that people go through. Even that it can be quite outrageous and this and that, quite unusual. But people can have amazing experiences, amazing karma. But then again, so he went to New Norcia, and then he was complaining to the abbot later that he barely had time to meditate because he was working like all day, Let's see. Okay. When you do anapanasati meditation, do you breathe from your nose to your mouth or from both? So the correct way to the way I do, this is just one way, is I breathe through my nose. I breathe in and out through my nose, but I focus on the feelings around my mouth. I always focus on the mouth because it's very, very clear. The sensations are very, very clear, but it's still sharp. It's a small area, and for most people, the nose tip it's like a laser beam. They can't, unless you've got one pointed concentration. If I use that word in loose terms, one pointed focus. Most people can't focus at the nose tip like clearly, second after second after second. But you go here, and it's very, very, it's very not difficult at all once you get a grip on it. But the thing is that you can breathe any way that you like, both in and out, or both, or whatever your preference, as long as it feels comfortable for you, and comfortable, natural, and it gets good results. So you choose whatever style which suits you. I know someone who breathes through their third eye. Another person who breathes through the crown chakra in the top of their head. Another person does the small heaven cycle. They follow the breath right down through the front, I think the front of the body, and then coming up through the spine. So the small heaven circuit that you see with Qigong, that's the way that they practice. But the bottom line, you can practice any way that you like, as long as the basic principles are there and you get good results. So Ajahn mentions about breath, something to timing. It cannot happen unless you breathe from your mouth. About breath, something to breath to tummy, something to tummy. The impression I get is this full cycle breath, possibly maybe from the nose to the abdomen. I can't fully understand this, but whatever way you look, you can always check. You can check with me later. But the bottom line is, it doesn't matter which way you practice mindfulness training, as long as it works for oneself. Contemplation, wisdom, meditation. How do we do this in a way that is useful, not ruminating? That is thinking too much. I understand meditation to be a tool. I understand meditation to be a tool for quietening the mind. Contemplation is a thinking mind process and isn't quietening the mind. In the act of contemplation, when to contemplate versus simply observing the breath. So when to contemplate and when to just, say, do bare awareness of the breath. So the same thing again, you can do this a number of ways, but the most effective way, which works for myself, is to, if you want to keep the practice in balance and you want to make it even all the way for weeks and months on end, is to do anapanasati or walk meditation or do mantra. Excuse me. For 5 minutes, at least get a small degree of samadhi, and then investigate your experience. Samadhi is all very nice, but it's just a tool. It's wisdom which counts. Wisdom is what frees you. Wisdom is what solves problems and removes obstructions and improves the quality of your life and makes you happier, this and that. You do get that too from samadhi, but only to a point. Wisdom always, in every single case, has more power overall and gets results. So this is, so that same thing again. To get the best results, meditate for 5 minutes, watching anapanasati, whatever meditation you do, and then when you get some baseline samadhi, then contemplate to the best of your ability. And then after you finish the contemplation, in whatever way that you choose, go back to the breathing. If you want to keep your practice in balance and get good results, just keep going back and forth, back and forth. You choose the time scale. It can be 10 minutes, it can be several minutes. There's no hard and fast rules with this kind of experience. This is what works for me, but you can make slight adjustments to suit oneself. Is it possible to talk about mental health, depression and Dharma, and maybe antidepressants? All right, very, very briefly. I was in mental health for 2 years. Say, for example, with schizophrenia, you've got to be, definitely depression. Meditation definitely works for depression, without a doubt, because I know several people who told me themselves that it certainly made a difference. And they found like they got a stabilization of mood. If they meditated on one day, they would be free from depression for 48 hours, and then it would start to return. So, if you meditate every day, even for 5 minutes, it could be quite beneficial. People with schizophrenia, you've got to be quite careful. People with bipolar schizophrenia, where the level of delusion is quite pronounced, it could be quite strong. So, people with depression may, in loose terms, are more in contact with reality than a person with schizophrenia or paranoid schizophrenia or say like bipolar. I'm talking in loose terms here because people with bipolar also feel depression as well. But with depression, you're reasonably safe practicing meditation for a person who suffers from depression. But with schizophrenia and these really, really heavy delusional states, it could actually make the person worse. Delusion can increase. So, but the thing is, you have to test it. For myself, if I knew a person with like clear mental health symptoms, I'd give them guidance on meditation, but I wouldn't. I would have to keep an eye on them. I wouldn't just, if somebody comes my way, and then I give them some advice, and then basically give them a flick and never see them again. That's something I wouldn't do. If I can keep an eye on them, just check in. Maybe they can give me a call once a week, this or that. Just to keep tabs on them, make sure they're okay. The bottom line is, if they've got mental health symptoms and the meditation makes it worse, basically stop. With samadhi meditation, samatha meditation, sometimes it doesn't work very well at all, because you're going into the mind and you're going into the delusion, increasing delusion. But for those people, they really should develop some skills with contemplation. So I went out to do a house blessing for a lady who had paranoid schizophrenia, And so as we were talking things over, this and that, you know, it's not easy to work with, but these people, they can benefit possibly to a small degree if they actually analyze if they come to an understanding of what they're going through. And I asked this particular lady, I mean, I just challenged her on a mild level, and she like reacted quite strongly. She said, because she thought that they were basically trying to kidnap the cats and kill them, the kittens as well, and this and that. You know, these people, you know, they're not going to waste their time with her kittens and cats. You know, for what? You know, they've got their own lives to deal with. They haven't got time to play with her cats for a start, on both sides of the property. But she's convinced they're out to get them. So when I sort of questioned this, she said, you know, she reacted quite strongly. She said, no. She said, I know. And I said, where's the proof? And I said, when was the last time, you know, is there any evidence that they've taken the cats and this and that? And I won't go into all the details, but she said, I know, and I know it's true. And I said, and then she wanted the Buddhist people, the Armadale group, to help her move location from the house where she was located. And because she basically wanted to circumvent the police, community services, RSPCA, and any other government agency, because she didn't want to pull those guys in to help her, because they basically would have shut her down. They would have moved her out of that house, and they would have taken away all her cats. They took her dog. Her dog was blind, but the dog would alert her if anyone came onto the property, you know. But they thought that, you know, I won't digress too much. They thought that the dog's teeth were infected. They took the dog away, and then they ended up, and it just drove her crazy. They put the dog down without even consulting her, so that really set her off. But yeah, you put it, you know, you've got to be careful. Depression, you're reasonably safe. With schizophrenia and really delusional states, you've got to keep tabs on them. How do you deal with anger in the Buddhist way? It could be, but the thing is, it could be internal, or you could have people provoking you. Say, for example, a very good, the emptiness principle, you know, if it's really a problem, the emptiness principle can be quite effective. You can target, you know, the person, that the particular person is empty, or that feeling is empty. You know, what's the word? You undermine the power base of that emotion. And, you know, but this is a very general thing the person has mentioned. You know, so for example, one of the ladies that comes to the monastery, her teenage daughter is playing up. She's keeping bad company, you know, this and that. And her counsellor said to her, like, when her daughter, you know, really started to get, you know, like really started to sort of stand up and start shouting and arguing and disputing, she said, basically don't play her game. Just say, look, you know, I'm not going to talk to you until you calm down, and you know, I don't have to listen. You know, I won't accept that. You know, I'm not going to accept that kind of treatment from you. And she's told her not to shout. The counsellor's told her not to shout. Don't argue. Just talk. Just tell her calmly the facts, and then just walk away. Turn your back on her and walk away. And so, which is pretty good advice. So, you know, it tends to keep you out of trouble. Because the daughter, you know, she may be looking for a fight, and you know, she's young and strong. She's fast. The house, you know, lots of big knives in the kitchen, you know, this and that, and you know, it was a bit serious. I won't go into details, but you know, quite serious. There was stuff said on you know, the internet, which was, you know, a bit scary. Hello, Ajahn. I noticed during meditation my mind thinking about work and the people there. When you talked about investigating thoughts, how can I do this with these thoughts? Thank you. All right, thinking about work and the people there. I may have already glossed over this one. There's a couple of things you can do. This is what I would do. With the thinking mind, there's three approaches. You just watch the thinking mind as it is. You don't interfere with it. You just watch the thoughts. Just the mind can think as much as it likes. You just watch. Be mindful of the thinking process, but you'll still gain a degree of insight from that. Just watching, and nothing else. The second level is the labeling of the thoughts. So as you think of a friend, a location, a time, a place, a thought, a feeling, you label the experience very, very clearly. So you say your friend's name, maybe a time and place, location. You just identify what it is. It could be anything whatsoever. It could be a sports car. It could be anything, and a movie, whatever. And the third level is you watch the thinking process, and you start to investigate your experience. So if I keep thinking about nice shiny sports cars, why am I doing this? It's not because I'm a monk. I could be a lay disciple, but I've got there's people who are fascinated by sports cars of any category, of any make or model, and so actually just gently question it. Try to understand it. Be your own psychologist. Go into it and try to comprehend everything about it. It could be the speed and the power. It could be because people admire you when you're in your nice flash Ferrari, or if you can afford one, or maybe you can afford the latest maybe Porsche, or whatever your expenses, how far your expenses extend. People they feel good when they're in their flash car. They feel good about themselves. So explore all the detail, all the options, and the whys and wherefores, and it'll give you a much more clear perspective. And then the attachments, the strength of the attachment, the pull of the mind state, the desire, and the ability to get you into that car yard. It will weaken over time, because you can see the tricks. You can see the way delusion works, and how it's beguiled you, how it's tricked and what's the right words? Pull the wool over your eyes. I'm trying to use the right words here, but all of us, the monks get fooled time and time again by underlying forces and energies in the personality. It's a bit with people in the world. You're living the worldly life now. You want to enjoy your life, this and that. So it's not such a big deal. But when things become problematic, then you have to get a very, very good synopsis on what you're going through. And there's other meditations. There's the things like thoughts are empty, that mantra, thoughts are empty. Undermine the power base of the thinking mind. Use the darkness meditation when you close your eyes and you see the dark color in the mind. Focus on that. That's very, very effective. Things like you can draw walking meditation. You can draw your attention away from thinking by focusing on sensation in the body. Oh. How can I do the contemplation part to resolve overthinking? It seems I have an endless stream of thoughts, not a single thought that can be contemplated and move on. Just try those three approaches with the thinking mind. But that darkness meditation, it works very, very well. Sometimes, to give you an idea, this is useful. You know how you get these sing-songy mantras on the internet? Mahayana, Tibetan, Sanskrit, Hindu mantras can be absolutely anything at all. Once Tibetan's got a nice tonal structure, or the Sanskrit. Get these mantras from the internet, and then play them on your phone or your iPod, and really get it, really drill it, and listen to it for absolute minimum 5-10 minutes, and get it to the point where it's spinning. And I've done this previously when I've been in situations where my mind, I can usually get peaceful without great difficulty, but this is very effective. And I've seen forest monks do this on a regular basis. When they get caught up with projects, they're working all day for weeks on end, meditation starts to drop off. They get the sing-songy mantra and they get it spinning for 10, 12, 14 hours a day. So easily, you listen to it for 5-10 minutes at a time, you just take it to the point where it doesn't stop and it keeps going. It may only last for a couple of hours, but it's actually generating samadhi, because, instead of thinking about 101 things, you've just got that, for some people, I wouldn't say it's not going to drive you crazy, because the thinking process is much worse than that. The mantra is just going to spin and spin for hours on end, and when it stops, you just get your iPod out and you keep it going and keep it going and keep it going for days and weeks on end. And you will shut that thinking mind down, because this is in the sutras as well. It's better to have that mantra going than to be thinking about all sorts of nonsense, especially if the mantra is based on the Buddhist teaching, or it could be anything. It could be a Christian, but it's still religious, spiritual. It still has some significance. Mm. When you say that we need to look closely to what comes up, past memories, emotions, my mind tends to analyze. What do you mean when you say look closely and how to release it? Thank you. So looking closely at past memories, emotions. Excuse me. My mind tends to analyze. I mean, it's okay to analyze as long as that analysis gets some result that you can see. If I'm analysing my stuff and there's no effect whatsoever, like if I'm analysing something over 24 hours and I see no effect whatsoever, that means that mode of contemplation basically doesn't cut the ice. It's not working. So I have to use another meditation tool, another approach, another means. There's all sorts of tricks and things you can do with meditation practice. Just that same thing again. You have to do what actually works, and you have to see that it works. What else? So, like looking closely. What does it mean to look closely? To focus, you focus on it gently, but understand everything about it. If I have something like, if I have an irrational fear of, it could be like rats. Maybe I could be quite fearful of rats. And I mean, why is it so? We had a rat like ripping through the fly screen upstairs. The Dharma silo, a very, very strong animal. In the end, I won't diverge too much, but so he ripped a hole right through the fly screen, ripped the fly screen out, like on the opposite side of the screen, and so he got in the building, playing around, probably got something to eat, and went back. So he's got a burrow on the corner of the building, and so I used a glue stick with a glue gun, and I glued a large square section of gauze, and he just ripped the gauze right off the window frame off the fly screen, and I thought, one of the monks saw this guy, and he was, the biggest rat you can imagine, with a very, very long tail, like Arnold Schwarzenegger of the rat world, and. So I thought to myself, Okay. We're going to get serious. So I got some liquid nails. We got a crate of liquid nails up at the workshop. I actually had to get some clear, and I glued gauze. I glued a large section of gauze, of metal gauze, not this flimsy plastic like baby stuff, metal gauze. And this is what he ripped out in the beginning. It wasn't plastic; it was metal. He was ripping it out of the frame. So I glued the gauze back to front, and that's what actually worked. But he ripped 3 holes out in the top of the top level of the Dharmasala. So him and his friends were probably having lots of fun, Like they go in through the top and then down into the kitchen and play around in the kitchen, jump all over the tables. Okay. Yeah, please. If any of you guys are really tired, don't be embarrassed. You can step out at any time. How can you let go of grief and loss? In the beginning stages, you don't have to, because if you do, people may accuse you of being an insensitive person. And I saw an example of this, and I mentioned to one of the gentlemen at the interview, a bikie from the Coffin Cheaters came up to the monastery, and he came upstairs, and I could tell he was high. He was off his face. But, I think maybe I'm only guessing. Say crystal meth. He had an incredible amount of energy, and he just buried his girlfriend the day before, and he was completely unaffected. No grief, no loss, no unhappy feelings on any level whatsoever. Buoyant, positive, energetic, friendly and sociable, and he just buried her the day before. And as soon as he said that, I could tell he was really high, but as soon as he said that, I thought, yeah, you're definitely on something which is pretty strong. But and he'd already buried, he'd already lost 20 friends. The girlfriend was the 20th person, and completely untouched. It's completely, so for example, if my own parents died, I would definitely be affected 100%. But it wouldn't last. You feel, your parents are very, very important to you. They've just given an incredible amount of time and energy to raise you. Given you opportunities, financial support, all sorts of things. But the grief and loss shouldn't go on. If a person felt the grief and loss past the 12-month point, they went over it like a full year, I would feel that they really need to do something. As you know, that story with Ajahn Brahm, lady got very, very indignant, with Ajahn Brahm, and said, "How dare you? How dare you tell me to abandon my grief and loss for my son?" So she lost her only son, the teenage boy, and 12 months later she was still in real emotional pain. But I'm not being unkind when I say this. She's not a practitioner. She's not like one of us. So she's not developing insight or wisdom hardly at all, even though she's seeing counsellors, and she's getting advice and she's being supported. But her son and those feelings are very, very important to her, and she's not going to let that stuff go unless she's maybe dying or something. So it's very clear to me she's not developing any significant insight. I'm not being nasty when I say this, but it's a fact. She's not developing any significant insight whatsoever. You know, she's really not working with her stuff at all. So even, I can almost guarantee that she would have been seeing counsellors on a regular basis, but it's not working. It really doesn't cut the ice. I'm not underestimating how effective counsellors can be, and clinical psychologists and psychotherapists definitely have skills. There's absolutely no doubt about it. But that lady was seeing counsellors and therapists. I've got absolutely no doubt whatsoever. But it just didn't seem to work. The pain had gone that deep. She couldn't shake it. So after a duration of time, you really need to basically. What's the right words? You really need to basically get on the ball and actually do something about this. So if you're suffering, you got to ask yourself why. Really go into it. That lady, it's like she really doesn't understand herself very well at all. So I'm better not sidetracked. How can you let go? So just that same thing. You really need to all the difficult feelings you go through. Take one feeling at a time and really try to understand exactly the process from start to finish. As soon as it comes up, don't let it snowball you and drown you. The feeling of grief and loss. Catch it immediately as soon as it comes up, and start investigating. Like be your own psychologist. Try to understand exactly what's happening right from the beginning point to the end point. Just one experience at a time. And don't stop. You may have to investigate this 100 times, 1,000 times, because we all have karma over the Buddha said, endless lifetimes, hundreds of thousands, of millions of lifetimes. So if you think that you're going to shake off a really heavy experience of grief and loss, you're really the person's kidding themselves. I've seen monks who have real, even at 15 rains, they still get angry. I've seen abbots with 35, high 35, high 30, 38, 39 rains, and who still have real potential for anger, and right in my face. So and these people are smart, really. They're PhD material, and they can still behave like that. But I'm not saying that these guys they shouldn't be like that, or their meditations are not very good, and they should be a better role model, and all this kind of stuff. I'm not pointing the finger and saying these people should get their act together, but it gives you an idea just how deep this stuff can go, and how many lifetimes we've been carrying these experiences, many lifetimes. So if you're in a situation where no matter how hard people push you or push your buttons, that you don't react and you don't get full-blown anger under almost any circumstance, unless they're cutting your arms and legs off, or they do something incredibly evil, like steal your children or assault your wife or girlfriend. That's a person who's like a saint who walks the earth. That's something you're not going to see very often. Thanks for teaching us the moving breath method. It works better. Sometimes I fall asleep when I meditate. Do you think that the mind is resisting the silence? This goes to sleep. What should I do? All right. So, what I would do? First thing I would do if I get sleepy, you've got to do slow, deep breathing. You've got to get the maximum level of oxygen in. to increase your alertness. If your brain gets tired, if your brain's sleepy, you're yawning, you're tired, it means that you're not breathing deeply enough. If you're breathing deeply and you're still quite tired, I would meditate with my eyes open. And if you're still like falling asleep, well like walk meditation. Something you could do I wouldn't recommend it, but if you don't want to give up, but you're afraid of falling asleep, just fall. While everyone's walking meditation next door, just like lie on the carpet, and I can guarantee you won't fall asleep very easily through pure embarrassment because these people are watching you. Let me think. That darkness meditation would work quite well. It's tricky when you're really, really tired. You may have been you're working all week. You're genuinely tired. You come onto retreat. As soon as you start meditation, your brain is telling you, your mind is telling you that you really are tired. So, as Ajahn Brahm mentioned, when people are on because he's constantly teaching 7-9 day meditation retreats, and he was saying some of his people are just exhausted for like the first 2 or 3 days. And he said they're sleeping they're sleeping at least 8 to 10 hours a day until they get rested. And he said after that, he said they're very buoyant. They've got bags of energy. They can meditate 5, 6, maybe 5, 6 hours a day. But because they're running around in the world and they're so busy and they're so overstimulated that they can't see and feel the underlying tiredness, which is with them a large majority of the time. But as soon as they come to meditation retreat and the mind starts to get a little bit quiet, or you've got a quiet setting, there's very few distractions, it becomes very, very obvious. They're like deeper down, they're just exhausted because they're busting their guts working for a living. Some of these people are working maybe even 12, 14 hours a day, 6 days a week. And they're doing it for years, Okay, Ajahn, are visualization methods a suitable practice with metta? Yeah, definitely. If you've got a visual mind, you can visualize in color. You've got ability to, what's the right words? You've got a very creative mind, imaginative mind. You're able to sustain attention. I would definitely do that if it works for you. You can sustain attention. You can have all sorts of beautiful visualizations of forests, of coastline, walking in fields with daffodils and all sorts of lovely, say, pleasant surroundings. And if that's the way your mind orientates, yes, definitely, I would definitely move in that direction. As long as you feel that it works well for you, you can create your own scenarios, your own visualizations to your choosing, as long as you get, say, good results over time. How do I stop my mind racing? I understand to acknowledge thoughts, accept them, and to let them pass naturally. Though half my thoughts seem irrelevant, e.g. what I have to do at home, what I want to do when I'm back in my room before sleep time. So really, right, the racing mind. But definitely, yeah, that darkness meditation is quite good. Even things like people can even do standing meditation. But the bottom line is, like I've mentioned, I've gone over this several times, but with all the techniques that you picked up on, you have to see what actually works for you over the weekend, what works for you at home. And I mean, for some people, it could take like a full 30 days, to actually see some good results. But the thing is that you put in 30 days of effort, it's not going to just disappear. You've got the ball rolling, and It's a matter of being skillful with techniques, you know, and you don't stop, you know, 5 minutes a day, every day, you know. Hey, Ajahn, happy your talks are so practical, thank you. Can you talk about a way to forgive or make peace regarding family wounding? Okay, maybe I'll leave this here. Maybe we can do a talk tomorrow on this. I could even, maybe I could do maybe a half and half, because we've got 2 more Dhamma talk sessions. If I can have maybe at least another 2 more topics, because I can do because we've got 30 minutes per session. I could spend 15 minutes on each as a possibility. How can lay people deepen their practice? So what I would focus on is, as you know, definitely like mindfulness. Try to really sharpen your mindfulness in daily life. So, if possible, try to avoid multitasking, where you're constantly switching and moving your attention, you know, from one thing to another in very short space of time. If it's at all possible, just do one thing at a time. And excuse me, some of you heard me mention this example previous. Ajahn Brahm had a disciple in the United States. She was a general manager, and general manager of call her a manager of a company, big company, and she was quite busy, this and that. But she was a consistent meditator, and what she would do, she would only she took Ajahn Brahm's instructions to heart. She would never multitask. She would only do one thing at a time, one telephone call, one fax, one email, and if someone came in and wanted to talk, she stopped the computer work, and she would speak to that person face to face. So she would never try to do 2 or 3 things in the space of whatever, 20, 30 seconds. And the other managers, when the word got out, because that really stands out, people noticed that quite quickly. And the other managers who were running operations in that fraternity, they thought she was mad, because they thought they essentially not mad, but they thought she was really like inefficient. You're wasting a lot of time, type of thing, and you're not getting much done, and this and that. But the quality of her work, she actually got more done, and the quality of work and her appraisals from her clients were actually better than the other managers within that big global fraternity. So so when she was talking to one of the clients, that's all she was doing. She was really focused. So she was able to communicate very effectively. She was listening, this and that. She'd do an email. The quality of the email would be 100%. The quality of the phone call would be 100%, not 25, not 50. So you can understand how this works. It worked very well. And just that same thing, 1 mantra per minute, or meditate for a minute, for 60 seconds at a time. And investigate your experience, develop your wisdom in daily life. What else? You can do things like you can do mindfulness training, like mindfulness of shapes, mindfulness of color, mindfulness of say the moving body. What else? Also, what else could you do? Color, shape, sound. Excuse me. You can listen. You can listen just very gently to sounds in your environment to sharpen mindfulness. But the thing is that it needs to essentially you need to be comfortable with it, and you really need to be able to work with it with your daily routine. Okay, where is it said the spirit energy soul goes if not returning for reincarnation? Where is it said? All right, you can find this in the sutras. If you're absolutely stuck, I can check. I can do a word search on my phone. Specific sutras where the Buddha talked about, say, rebirth with consciousness, with mind consciousness. The person's personality, the spiritual consciousness will go, if I understand what you're saying correctly, will take rebirth according to that person's karma. So whatever good or bad karma, good, bad or neutral karma that person's generated in this life and also past lives, but especially this life and especially close to the time of death, quite a number of people have like that deja vu. Excuse me. Where your life flashes before your eyes. When the pressure's on, sometimes people get this. When they're drowning, when they have a car accident, motorcycle accident, when they're falling from a cliff, all sorts of things. When you know you're in trouble, like in real trouble. The pressure's on. You can do things like your life flashes before your eyes. We're talking about hundreds. We're talking several hundred events, at least. Several hundred, 400, 500 events of your life flashing through your mind in 5 seconds. And you wouldn't believe it was possible, but it does. That happened to me. I had a motorcycle accident, and the most amazing thing wasn't the accident or the car. It was at night. The car sliding towards me with he'd locked his tyres up and he was just sliding towards me in the dark. But the ability to process that amount of information in such a short duration of time, that was one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. As you know, the person's consciousness takes rebirth according to the nature of their karma, whether it's in a high or low state, and so the duration of time, the quality of the rebirth, how the conditions they find themselves in, the kind of other beings they associate with, and whatnot. So, yep. Okay, thank you kindly for your blessed attention.